about that is make it hurt.
I have capital that I never used to have. That capital contributes to people being responsible. So my job of where I used to be in the weeds more, I don't have to be in the weeds as much, or I hold people accountable who are in the weeds to execute on what they need to execute on. So the day-to-day is easier for me because it's more just looking at the priorities and the projects to make sure we're moving things along where they need to and keeping them on path. And where I need to make sure that I'm doing my part, I do that part. But there's a lot of people that get to execute that now because I have the ability to afford to have people to do that. Where before, and that's all progression. Like I remember in 13, I hired my first assistant, 12 or 13, I hired my first assistant. I was scared to death. I didn't have $16 an hour to pay her.
Yeah.
And so I went through that. Like when I'm on stage, I'll always tell an agent this. I don't care if you're doing 5 million in production, 100 million, $1 billion. I don't care where you're at. I've been there because I did this grassroots style. I'm not an M&A guy that just took over a real estate group. I did this literally from zero, me. So I know the pain points of wherever you're at in your career. I know what you're scared of. I know the hardships of, when you're doing 0 to 5, the solution is 0 to 5 million in production. The solution is just get in front of many people as possible. You don't have money to spend, so you need to be doing as many open houses as possible. You need to be joining as many groups as possible. You just need to talk real estate as much as possible. Then when you're doing 5 to 15, it's okay. Now I'm making between 125 and 300 grand a year, so I can pay my bills, but I don't have quite the capital yet to make investments in high-level marketing or people. So now what you got to do is you got to drive the opportunity to bring more business to the table. Because then when you get to 15 to 30 million in production, now you got a little more capital. So now you can hire an admin.
Yeah.
Because you're never going to do 50 million in production on your own. It doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. You have to have, everything we do at JMG is leverage. All we are is leverage. I pulled it up today because I wasn't in the office yesterday and today's the first, so I wanted to see how many pending transactions did JMG have right now. And we had 1,444 pending transactions right now at JMG.
It's insane.
Here's the thing. I would ask this question on stage to agents and say, if you got 5 listings today and 5 new really good buyers, would you know how to manage your time with that? And most agents say no. And my response to that is because you haven't created leverage yet. So there's no way you could say that you want to be a $50 million a year producer because you wouldn't know what to do if it hit you today.
Yeah.
And so
that's a great point.
When I look at JMG, I have no idea how many listings we're taking in today. I have no idea how many deals we're going to sell today. I have no idea. It doesn't matter to me. 13, 14 years ago, I knew all of it because A, I was a lot of it, but B, I was like, we got 3 deals in today? That's amazing. Mm-hmm. We got another listing today? Hell yeah. Mm-hmm. Every year, it just kept building and building and building. But then you put protocols in place. You put a department in place. Like as things go on, you find more people because you need help. What you're always looking at is where's the gap and where can we improve? If the gap's in tech, you hire a tech person. If the gap's in communication, you hire a concierge person. If the gap's in P&Ls, you look for a financial person. If the gap is leverage in the field, you look, do I need a buyer's agent? Do I need a listing agent? Do I need both? Do I need a hybrid? Do I need a person in the office managing the paperwork and taking care to make sure things get to the finish line where they can, like what I did in the beginning was I checklist everything out. So as I started to grow in the field, I had my assistant and I gave her roles and responsibilities. And where people screw up is they give too many people too many things to do and then they change the mechanism of what they do. So many team leaders fail because they sit there and they say, they just quit. Well, didn't the other person just quit? Yeah, they quit last month too. Well, there's somewhere there's breakage.
Something's
now,
wrong.
A lot of it's training and development. A lot of it's over-promising. Mm-hmm. But the other side of it too is when you hire internally, not externally. Externally is in the field. So if you want to hire externally, what you need to do, number one, most important thing, you got to be able to teach them to be better at what they do and give them more opportunity. Those are the 2 main things. Internally, you got to make sure that they're given tasks that they're good at. That's why people say, well, what type of person should I hire? I don't know. What type of person are you? You and I are different, right? So what's the job? It's like, if you say I need help here, great. But if you just go and start searching for somebody to hire without writing out a job description, here's the job description. Here's the qualifiers for that job description. Some jobs require more attention to detail than others. Some require better communication skills than they do attention to detail. Some of your best salespeople are most unorganized people in the world.
Right.
I'm not going to hire them to do my paperwork. I'm not going to hire them to follow these checklists. So for me, it was, I started out with my assistant was helping me with the list side and the buy side on every time I got a new listing, this is what you do. Every time I got a new buyer, this is what you do. Start there and master that. That's when I say, even today at JMG, we have 5 people in processing. 5 people are processing 900 closings a month. Most companies would need 9 to 12 people to do that. They do it because no one overlaps. And overlapping will kill you because you can't master the craft, but you're also not building with efficiency on, like Michaela does the same thing every day 40 times. Oscar does the same thing 40 times a day. Crystal does the same thing 40 times a day. They could do it in their sleep because 1, 2, 3, 4, McDonald's. You do the bun, you do the burger, you do the bag, you hand it out the window, you ring them up. You don't do anything else. There's no cashier that's making the Big Mac, right? And there's no person making the Big Mac that's also doing the fries. Like there's someone's job title that I come to McDonald's every day and I do what's ever on the greaser. And I know because I worked at Burger King when I was 14. So if I was on the greaser, I was on the greaser. And if I was on the line, I was on the line. So I was making the burgers, I was making the chicken sandwiches, but I wasn't doing the fries and I wasn't ringing people up and I didn't do the shakes and I didn't do the drinks. And when I was on register, I did register and I did the running. So I would grab the bags, I'd hand it out, I'd ring someone up, grab the bags, ring somebody up. But I didn't do the register I didn't do the register in the dine-in and do the register for the drive-through. Can't do that. So it's all the same modeling. It's a matter of you have to know where to put people first and where requires the most work because you may think that you're bad at paperwork, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you need somebody to do it for you. Is that the biggest need? Or are you finding yourself that you're in the field too much doing walkthroughs and inspections where you're not really getting your paperwork because you just don't have the time because you're out making it rain? Yeah. That's not necessarily an organizational problem. What you need is leverage in the field. Once, I tell my team this all the time too, like follow the money. The money, like everything should follow the money, which means everything should follow revenue. Revenue's first. Because without money, no one's in business. So look at where you can make money first. If you can make more money in the field by having people work with your clients to create more time for you so you can go get more listings or you can go close more buyers, that's where it's best spent. But at some point, you're going to need help. But what I always look at solutions of, well, that's a good problem to have. If you and your 2 buyer's assistants are so busy that you need somebody internally that you got to pay $3,000 a month in salary and $250 per closing, that's a great problem to have.
Yeah.
Now, that's exactly what you want to be getting to. But we've all been to where it's uncomfortable. Like I didn't think that my IT staff I have today between both companies was going to cost me $1.6 million a year 10 years ago. Who would have thunk it? I mean, our operation to run both companies is give or take $11 to $12 million a year just to break even. Who would have thought? Because 12 years ago, I was afraid to hire somebody one person at $16 an hour. Now I have $12 million in overhead before I make $1. But it all doesn't happen like that. It's progression. It's progression in your career in the field, and it's progression in how you build a business. It's all progression.
Okay, so yes, it's progression, but I want to point out that there's not that many people who can tolerate the progression. There's not that many people. So I know so many realtors that same thing. I don't have $16 an hour. I don't have $20 an hour. And because they don't have it, they won't do it. They don't move past the fear and get into action to be able to tolerate more and more and more.
Yeah, because
so what I want to get at from you is your internal self. Like, how is it that you were like, I can't afford this, but I'm going to do it anyways? Like, what caused you to be able to make that leap and just like trust your future? I always say, trust your future self. So how is it that you have been trusting your future self so consistently?
Because there's always a cap. I mean, that's why, I was at a company called My Home Group before I opened up our own brokerage, right? And I loved it there. And I love the partners, Jeremy and Mark. They're awesome. I mean, honestly, they were great partners that let me do my thing. And I'm friends with them to this day, and I'll never complain about my experience there because it was an amazing experience and I loved being there. But I had to go on my own because I had a vision of where I wanted to build my own company. And if in order for me to do that, there are sacrifices that I've had to make. So if I'm going to do that, then guess what? You got to get ready because now you got broker. I never wanted to be my own broker, but what I realized was I wasn't going to build this national team and create the value of the team versus having the own company. And so I knew that if I built the company, if my team was at my home group today, we're not worth $200 million, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Like I had bigger visions of
Yeah.
what I wanted to accomplish, right? And I had bigger visions than where we're at today, and I know I'm going to get there. But everything, again, takes time. So if you don't trust the process of, like a lot of people are control freaks and they can't get out of their own way. What they say is like, if I hire a buyer's agent, okay, and my phone rings and it's a $300,000 buyer or a $400,000 buyer, my brain doesn't go to, okay, I can close this person and make 12 grand. My brain goes, I can give that to Moni and she can go make a commission. Because the way I look at it is everything's about time. So I can pass this buyer off, know they're going to be in good hands, and know that I'm still going to get paid, just not as much, but I get my time. See, I use my time wisely. So now, instead of me spending Saturday touring that client, I hopefully can go on a couple listing appointments, but knowing that I'm still going to make 50% on that, but I'm going to have a happier agent that's part of our group.
Right.
I'm still going to make money. They're going to spend the time, but I'm going to go get more deals while they're out doing that. That's all JMG is. JMG is the ultimate leverage model where we are distributing $50 billion a year in referrals to our partners, our agent partners that are out there right now putting deals in. We did 72 deals yesterday. I don't know a single person that they did a deal with, but I know I got 72 agents that put contracts in yesterday that I get to capitalize off of. And the reason I get to capitalize off of it is because I'm providing currency to these agents, to not only from the business that we give them, but because they see the value in that, I also get a little participation on their own business, which is fair. Mm-hmm. So it's the ultimate leverage game when you talk about real estate. Mortgage is the same way. Mortgage is identical. Any great mortgage professional that does really well, guess what they have? They have junior LOs who also have their own in-house processing, who have their own underwriters that are underwriting their files for them, and they're just a machine. They're just a machine. They just need to find the organization that allows them to function and be a machine. Some organizations aren't cut out for that. They're just not built that way. And some are. Some of them aren't built that way by design. Some of them are built that way by design. But it's the same thing in real estate. Like, there are places that you can flourish faster and more efficiently than there are others. Some brokerages just simply don't have the tools or the ability or the backing to allow you to be an entrepreneur and spread your wings and grow as much as you possibly want. Most people don't want to be their own broker. I mean, it's a pain in the butt, don't get me wrong. But most people just want to flourish where they can do good in production on their own, build a team, but now have enough leverage to where if they go on vacation with their husband, for example, they don't need to worry about their phone. Their team's covering it. They got people to work it. That was what I found is that was so always, and I asked for it. I wanted to be busy like that. Mm-hmm. But no one wants to be so busy all the time that they can't even breathe. That's why they got to create leverage. Leverage gives you the ability to manage. Now, you're going to take a back seat for a little bit. When I really started focusing on building this company, I was making $5 million in the field in production, right? And for the next couple years, I didn't make anywhere near that. Mm-hmm. Now, what I had hoped for was if I take a back seat and start really focusing on building the company and slow my production down, I'm going to lose these clients. And I'm going to lose a lot of my repeat clients. But the ones that call me, I'll have an agent that can work. See, what I did was I said, I'm not working them. I'm not doing it. And I had so many people in my book, people that were calling me, and what I said was, no, I'm not doing this, but you can work with someone. You can work with Wexler. He's amazing. And most of the time they said, sure. So I took a little rip off that while I was building, but I wasn't getting my 100% commission anymore. Mm-hmm. So I took a back seat to all that, and I said, I'm not working anything in the field because I need to stay focused on building this company. That's a hard position when because I had luxury. Most of my book at the time was luxury, right? Yeah. I represented a lot of luxury.
It's a lot of money that you're having to
Somebody
sacrifice.
wants to buy a $6 million house and all of a sudden you're saying, do you want to work this deal? Most people don't do that, right? But I did that. And I did that because I wanted to stay focused on building this. And I knew, and we still got a long way to go, but I knew that if I did it the right way, this would pay off benefit in the long term. And where it paid off is forget the money that you make and all that stuff. Like that stuff to me was secondary to building a company that has value and building a company where not only are you creating value by creating a company worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but you're creating, and hopefully even more, but you're creating value for the people that are part of that company too, because they have options and they have shares.
Yeah.
So it just became bigger than what I had thought it would be. But now you just get so determined. Like I wanted to be the number one agent under 30 in the state of Arizona when I got back into real estate. I did that quickly. That was easy. Then I wanted to do it under 40. I did that in the next year. That was pretty easy too. Then I wanted to become the number one agent in the state. That wasn't going to be so easy. I was competing against Jaffe, Walt, and like these big household names in Arizona, that Bobby Lieb, and guys that are my friends, guys that I always admired and looked up to and aspired to. Like, you know, I'm 31 years old, 32. I remember having lunch with Robert, who happens to be a Michigan guy, and I'm like, I'm sitting here with fucking Robert Jaffe right now. I'm like, oh my God, I'm with Robert Jaffe right now. You know, like it was an honor. But what was nice about that is that I never, ever, and to this day, I never crap on anybody. I never look at anybody's success and I'm like, get envy about it. It just motivates the shit out of me. Like I wanted to be Walt Danley. Walt Danley was number one for so long. Now Joan Levinston is, and she's amazing. I've never done the numbers she did. Like I think she did 200 and some million last year. I never did those numbers. My best year was like 155, 160 or something. But I was doing this back in 2016, 17. But before that, when I got to a point where it was in sight. Like I knew it was in sight. Now I wasn't in sight like it wasn't in sight in 12 and 13 and 14. But as 14 rolled around and I got done, 15, I was like, I might get there.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. But as 16 rolled around, I knew I could do it. And I had it. In 17 for sure. It was already locked in 18. But I did that fast. But I also didn't get out of I didn't set unrealistic expectations to what my internal goals were. I would always like internally back then, and they're friends of mine, but I was internally competing with Brian North and Chris Karras. They were my counterparts at different places where I'm like, I want to beat Chris this year, or I want to beat Brian this year. And then it was like, how can I get to the next level where I can be a top 10 agent in the state? Actually, how can I win? And then it was, how can I become the number one real estate team in Arizona? And then it was, can I actually become the number one real estate team in the United States? Like, is that even freaking feasible? And I wasn't even close. I was like 70th or something at that time in 15 and 16. And every year I just kept working at it and working at it and working at it.
I like the way you're phrasing it because you're saying, how can I? Which is something that I talk to my team about a lot because I tell my team, like, never take the first no, like get multiple no's before you accept it, but also change the question. How can it be a yes? So I'm hearing you say, how can I do these things? That's like an interesting way for you to phrase it when you're considering reaching for something that at some point feels like this is impossible. I'm never going to be able to do it. Well, how can I do it? Well, how can I make this next step? And how can I make this next step? Mm-hmm. This is, I think it's an important thing for people to take note of just like paying attention to the way you're asking yourself about it. Because if you can ask the question in a different way, like, how can I do it? Now, all of a sudden, it opens up the possibility versus shutting it down before you even start.
You know what I do that I find myself doing all the time? And I've done this for so long. I grew up pretty poor. Great family, but we didn't have a lot of money. And I always pictured myself having abundance. So I started my first job. I was counting cans because in Michigan you can get 10 cents per can.
I did the same thing when I was little. That's weird.
I was a caddy at a golf shack. I worked at Burger King, like I said. And then I started telemarketing. But money was a driving factor to me because I never wanted to not be able to get what I desired. And when I started working for Pulte, the reality was I started as an intern, and the only reason I wanted to start there was because my fraternity brother started there 2 years prior to me. In his first year out of school, he made $180,000, and he came back to Central Michigan in a new Cadillac.
God.
And I thought to myself, if Nick can do it, I can do it.
Right.
So I was always money motivated.
Yeah.
But here's what I always find myself doing. I always talk about it before I got it, meaning I remember I put on our business card. If I could find this business card, you wouldn't call me a liar. But I put on this business
I
card.
still won't call you a liar. But okay.
I put on the back of the business card, and I had them printed, and it said top 50 real estate team in the world. And if I had to guess, it was probably like 2015 when I did that, maybe 16. And I got them printed, and they came to the office. And I looked at my assistant at the time, and I said, that just sounds far-fetched, doesn't it? And she's like, a little bit. And I'm like,
I like in the world. That's great.
but like, it just sounded so ridiculous
Yeah.
that I was like, well, they're printed, so I'm not taking them back. But it was just manifesting something that, like, I'll always sort of, like right now in my mind, I know exactly what I'm trying to manifest, but I'm years away from it. But every day I remind myself of, that's where I'm going to be. I'm either going to be on the stock exchange ringing the bell, or I'm going to do something to where I roll this thing up and everybody's happy and we have a big win. Like, I know it's coming, but I know it's also not a year away. But every day I remind myself of where I want to be to get to that point. Like, I mentally, like, I don't, not, like people said, do you put it in the universe and do you, and I'm like, no, I don't do any of that. But I think about it constantly. I think about it constantly where I want to get our company to be and the building blocks of where I know it needs to go in order to get there. But I just take it day by day.
You chip at it, right? Like step by step.
Day by day. Day by day, you'll get there. And if you do that, it's funny how much in 1 year you can turn around and be like, holy crap, I can't believe it. Things happen fast, really fast. So I believe that, look, there's a lot of pretenders out there, a lot of pretenders that they think they want to be there, but the reality is they know themselves better than, like, you should be your own worst critic when it comes to your work ethic. And if you know you're bullshitting yourself, then all these visions of where you want to get to, why are you lying to yourself? Like, I'm relentless in the pursuit of wanting to be great at what I do. I have my days where I'm like, fucking, I'm going to sleep until I want to wake up today and not get up. I don't care. I have my days where I'm like, I'm just not feeling it. That's okay. That shit happens. But 95% of the time, like, I'm at it. And I try to take breaks with my family. Like, I carve out a couple hours a day to be with my daughter and my stepsons and do that and spend time with them. But I'm always thinking. And so, but the pretenders are out there saying, oh, I want to be a millionaire one day. So does everybody.
Yeah.
But you're not putting in the effort to do it. And that's the stuff that, like, I hate the dreamers that are actually dreaming with no intent.
Yeah.
It just bothers me. Like, stop it. Because I've seen you now. I've seen you through the years that you don't have it. Stop lying to yourself. And then there's the people that actually go for it. You'd be shocked. Like, you'd be shocked if you go for something, what you might be able to, like, it's kind of scary what you might be able to do if you actually put your mind to it. I don't think you or I had any advantage over anybody else. I mean,
It's just the tools. I mean, this entire hour conversation has been, in my mind, I'm just putting that, you gave me a tool. I'm going to put that in my toolbox. I'm going to remember that. I think just having these type of conversations, hearing from people who've done it for real from scratch, like, how do you do it? And then just knowing that it's going to be a ton of work, but also a ton of vision. And I think those two things combined, you make you unstoppable. So I want to thank you. We're getting kicked out of this place. They're literally coming in here to kick us out.
Thanks for having me.
I want to thank you so much. I feel like there was so much that you shared that I can't even wrap my mind around how valuable it is. But it's very clear to me the connection between so much of what you said and now what your creation is. And I think that that's such a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
And thank you for letting me be a part of your creation.
Yeah,
I love
my
it.
pleasure.
I'm excited.
I'm happy to have you. Thank you.
Okay. Bye. Bye, guys. Thanks.